following special event is presented by Bravo, the marketing arm of Ash Brokerage Corporation, the Practice Enhancement Company. Welcome to Steve Savant's third annual tribute to Halloween entitled The Undertaker. Our impaired risk expose on life insurance underwriting to usher in the substandard season. And throughout the week, we'll feature the Informed Risk Guide, the most comprehensive field underwriting manual, highlighting the best table shaving and crediting programs available in the market. On today's show is our introduction into mortality underwriting.
Happy Halloween, everyone. I'm your host, Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and contributing author to Backroom Technician. But today, I'm also the Undertaker to help you exhume unplaced cases from the underwriting files of the declined, the postponed, and the heavily rated. Well, welcome to the show. Friday, you've been here all day. Charlie, Joe, what do you think?
Well, so far so good. This has been fun.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I want you to be on here because I want to open the substandard season and I want our advisors and our registered reps to be informed on what's going on out there. And again, please, you can get your own Informed Risk Guide. We've been doing the commercial all week long. This is a great thumbnail sketch. It will get you in the game. It's got spreadsheet and grids that are really to die for, I hate to say. And I really find it to be really good. They call agents field underwriters. Well, how can you do it without a manual? I think this is a great, tight, informed risk manual. Let's talk about, now we talk about impairment niches, right? Everybody seems like, for example, I'm thinking of a carrier, I don't want to say their name because I don't want to get in trouble with them, but they just don't want diabetes. If I have a diabetic case, they'll never see my case. They've already told us that. They're very upfront with it. By the way, I appreciate that. At least they tell me this is not what we're going to play. But there are other carriers that seem to advertise and underwrite to undergird their advertisement certain niches that they kind of own in our market. We kind of lean towards them. We kind of move towards them. Let's talk about some of the fews. And what we've done is we've taken probably about a dozen and a half of the top impairments. And we've said, who are the carriers? Now, there won't be one. There will be a couple. Remember, every case is different. It's going to have individual information that are going to be anomalies. They're going to move us out of this niche. This is just a get started reference point. It's not an end game reference point. But that being said, let's go down and talk about some of the big ones. Now, we just got done yesterday talking about mature assessments. I'm just looking at this, and we won't be able to get to them all, but I'm looking at arthritis. You know, I can understand other issues in here, but arthritis is kind of an anomaly, but not for geriatrics. Yeah. How much does that play into a life insurance? Is that a mortality or morbidity issue?
Both. It's both, depending on the severity of the impairment, okay? More severe rheumatoid arthritis, when you're on the methotrexate, sometimes it's the medications that's worse for you. If you have somebody with severe osteoarthritis that's falling a lot, that could be more.
That could be really huge,
That could be huge.
So when I'm looking at what I call secondary areas, like even asthma, is an issue. I mean, when I get that far up the line, there's certain carriers. I see 3 or 4 carriers. I'll sit here. Hey, they're okay with it. I mean, nobody's okay with it, but they seem to be. They have a greater understanding, and they're looking at that disease at a risk that's a little bit cheaper than some other carriers.
Yeah, and a lot of these impairments that you're going to see on this sheet are the standard and up. You know, to where the niche is that we're able to take something that the manual says standard and actually do better than that, depending on the specific information.
Has the manual caught up to all the technology and the medical prescriptions that are going on in secondary issues like arthritis, like asthma?
I think it's spotty. I think, and for the most part, I think they've done a real good job of it. But there are still some impairments, some medications, some treatments that are out there that are still kind of in that test phase, and they're not quite sure if it does make a drastic difference yet or not from a mortality standpoint.
Listen, we're talking about our Friday. We just dipped into November. We spent the whole month talking about breast cancer awareness with the NFL, with our shows. We've been doing a lot. And I want to know, when you're talking about breast cancer, who are some of the real players? And I know that stage 4 is an issue. I realize that. But let's just talk about, I had it, I've been free, some of the stage 1 and 2 issues. Who are the players in breast cancer? Because that has totally changed over my last 5 years of my 30-year in business.
Yeah.
A lot of it with me is it comes down to the staging. So once you get the staging done, I think generally the carriers are a little bit more lenient when it comes to that area than some of the Swiss Re carriers. And then you have to look at the carriers that have their own proprietary. Nobody actually stands out in my mind that's the person I have to go to. Again, it's going to come down to product. It's going to come down to plan design, and then it's going to come down to the actual staging, the age. The treatment in the history of the client.
So if you had to go with some today, and you were looking at stage 2 and lower, with at least a bit of clean history behind it, and what would be that time schedule? What I'm looking at, a year out, 2 years out?
You know, it varies. There are some carriers where we've had luck with, in the recent past, with someone like a John Hancock that has allowed us to issue coverage immediately after treatment. But some of them, it may be 3 to 6 months, some up to a
I'm
year.
sorry, Joe, that is
stage.
unheard of in
Right.
my career. These are recent moves. This is why we're bringing it to you. These are very recent moves in underwriting with specific carriers. I think there's a huge issue, especially coming off the month of breast cancer. What about regular cancers like prostate? What kind of cancers do you see? And you're saying, wow, Steve, there's some benevolency here I've seen.
Prostate cancer to me is definitely one of those
Prostate's a
ones
big
that
one.
we're definitely at the older ages, the lower stages, we're getting preferred at the older ages on the prostate cancer. Where 3-4 years ago, we weren't getting that.
Yeah, we're really extended life on what used to be mortality killers, and now we're looking at things that are really, we've had tremendous technology. So all the cancers in, I'm looking at specific cancers. When we fill out that form, you're going to know who the players are in that specific disease, and you're going to quarantine everybody, keep them out of that, and look at those carriers to get the best possible price. Do you see, Joe, any difference between full table underwriting on cancer, temporary, and flat extras?
We do. I think that for the most part, cancers you're going to see flat extra ratings because it's a permanent condition, and by definition, that's what a flat extra is. It's to cover a permanent, or I'm sorry, it's a temporary condition, and by definition, that's what flat extras are, to cover temporary risk. We've gotten creative though in the past on some things where we have tried to take an uninsurable risk, convert it to a table rating, maybe on a survivorship policy, and take someone that would otherwise not be insurable and assess a table rating for a permanent upcharge if it made the numbers work on a survivorship case. So there's some flexibility.
When we come back from the break, we'll continue our review on carrier niches in various impairments. And don't forget, you can order the Informed Risk Guide. Just go to downtobusiness.ashbrokerage.com. Just enter your contact information and we'll email you the guide. And remember, over half of all Americans who own life insurance are in the wrong rate class and are overpaying for coverage. Now is the time to secure a second opinion with the largest in-house underwriting staff in the brokerage community. Back in the day, life insurance professionals were called field underwriters. Then, carriers trained their field force in the basics of life insurance underwriting. Today, the insurance industry doesn't educate the agent population as they once did. But now you can have the Informed Risk Guide at your fingertips so you can illustrate a reasonable rate class for your life insurance prospects. Just request your copy of the Informed Risk Guide at downtobusiness.ashbrokerage.com. It's free from Ash Brokerage, the practice enhancement company. Welcome back to our Halloween special event. I'm your host, Steve Savant, the Undertaker. I'm here to help you exhume unplaced cases from the underwriting files of the declined, the postponed, and the heavily rated. We're ushering in the substandard season with our impaired risk expose on life insurance underwriting. In the second segment of today's show, we're reviewing carrier niches in various impairments. Well, we're talking about impairment niches with carriers, and I'm trying to think about when people send in their material, who knows, it's going to come in informals, maybe a full app, maybe they just want to talk to an underwriter. We have the largest faculty of underwriters in any independent marketing organization in the United States. We have so many people down there that are truly underwriters, right? Not just impaired risk managers, but underwriters. And when we send them information, can our advisors and registered reps, can they actually talk to the underwriter? Because the carriers don't let us do this. Do you let us do this?
Not only do we allow it, we encourage it.
Encourage it.
Okay, so this is unheard of too, because most guys say, hey, I'll be the gatekeeper for the underwriter. I'll see who gets to talk to him. But we have a huge faculty of underwriters, and we have no problem engaging.
No, I think that is a differentiator for us, is when you talk to any one of our underwriting advocates, we're going to ask the next question. You know, anyone can do technical underwriting, and I'm not downplaying that because it's important, but we ask the next questions and the what ifs, and we really try to position and package the case in the most favorable light by doing that.
Charlie, when I'm looking at cardiovascular, we talked about this at the beginning of the week. Man, this has changed. I mean, I can't remember the last time I saw an actual decline just because of that issue.
Right.
So we know that has been a huge change in our thinking. But I noticed you said earlier in the week, you brought up hepatitis, which was, I have to tell you, was a shocker. So we have carriers now that are looking at this way more benevolently than they ever have before.
Definitely, definitely. I would say the switch was somewhere between 3, maybe 4 years ago, where up until that point it was an automatic decline. And now we'll look at it, we'll look at the viral load, we'll look at the liver functions and treatments, and in some cases we're getting standard, maybe some low substandard ratings on these cases.
See, that's a shocker when I see that kind of condition. Here's another one I wanted to, just because we're recording today in my state, Arizona, melanoma. Talk a little bit about melanoma, because we are the state of melanoma. We are the sunscreen state of America.
Melanoma is one of those cancers that if you do not catch it quickly enough, it's deadly. Okay, and I think we tend to downplay it because we think, oh, it's a skin cancer, it's not a colon cancer, it's not a breast cancer. The statistics aren't as high as, it's not the leading cause of cancer. Maybe it is here in Arizona, but it's definitely something that is a significant cancer. The earlier you get that, the better it is for you.
So do you see any play? So early detection is where we're looking at from an underwriting point of view. We don't want this thing to go on and on. The skin is the largest organ in the body,
yes, it is.
and I mean, I can see the issues are pretty huge. What about pulmonary diseases, respiratory, COPD, things of that nature? What are we moving any place on this?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think that those are pulmonary issues are kind of, they are what they are. A lot of times what you run into on pulmonary issues are the medications that are prescribed, and that those have a difficult impact on your body. But like anything, the medications do well, and they do tend to help. But no, we're not really seeing anyone put their foot out and saying we're going to do something,
sure,
cutting edge.
How about liver functions? Well, I know that a lot of times we get into, I think it's creatine and.
The liver functions are your AST, ALT. I'm not going to get into the long name, but Prudential. Prudential is the carrier to go to with liver functions. I mean, talk about a niche. To me, that's a true niche that they have.
I notice a lot of people always have, when we get into functions, everybody's always looking at this creatine. I think it's creatine, right?
That's a renal
kidney.
Yeah, kidney.
Yeah, kidney. And so they're just kind of like, hey, they keep saying it's so high. Is that bad?
Depending on your age, yes. I mean, as that number goes up, it means kidney function is going down. If we take out maybe some of the other more benign causes, whether it's medication, dehydration, whatever, but as we age, everything in our body starts to not work as well as it used to, so that number can naturally go up and it's okay. If you're a 50-year-old and that number is going up, then we're a little bit more concerned that we have some kind of kidney disease going on.
Let's talk about diabetes, so type 1, type 2, insulin diet, all these things that matter. Oh, adult onset, no, I've had it forever. All these aspects. Talk a little bit about that, Joe.
Yeah, diabetes is one that I do think that we've come a long way on, to where an A1C under 7.5 are now standard cases. We've seen a few people that have pushed the limits and gone preferred on a really well-controlled type 2 diabetic. You always have the issue on type 1 and on type 1 diabetics of, even if it's controlled, they've had it for so long, the chances of that doing damage to their body is just so high that type 1 cases are really, really difficult to underwrite. But we've still gotten some really good outcomes on those as well.
I want to know if we're going to offer some underwriting that could be benevolent in the fourth quarter on diabetes. Do you have carriers in your mind that you think seem to take a more positive position than the rest of the marketplace?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we covered, earlier some of the credit programs, I think those are the carriers you have to look at, your principals and those types that will take a diabetic, apply credits, and potentially get a diabetic up to preferred. That's a win situation.
And it's an age thing. If you're 65 and older and you've had it for less than 5 years, those are the risks that we can get those preferreds on a lot of times.
But it's really when you're getting older and you've had it for 10, 15 years, it's a little more difficult to place. When we know the carriers not to send it with, again, some of these carriers have went and told us not to do it. But when we're looking at diabetes, which is going to be a big thing we're going to focus on in 2014, we're going to actually go out on the street. Any of those carriers that come to your mind, like Principal, which is a big one, a big name to come to, do you see us moving, though? Have you seen movement in diabetes underwriting, diabetic underwriting?
I think that's one area where it goes up and down.
Yeah, because just over the past several months, we got information that came down from the ADA that they're going to be moving the A1C level.
Higher.
That it's going to be moving up to where you're considered a diabetic. And so I can assure you that the carriers are going to adapt to that at some point. Some already are. To where you're 5.7 now, whether you're diagnosed or not, they're going to consider you a diabetic. So we have to be prepared for that.
Today was part 5 of our 5-part series on life insurance underwriting. To order your free copy of the Informed Risk Guide, just go to downtobusiness.ashbrokerage.com. And remember, over half of all Americans who own life insurance are in the wrong rate class and are overpaying for coverage. Now's the time to secure a second opinion with the largest in-house underwriting staff in the brokerage community. And don't forget, you can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn, or just email me at steve.savant@ashbrokerage.com. And remember, you could be wiser as an Ash Brokerage advisor. Happy Halloween, everyone.